and people just don't even want to. They don't even give you time to hear what you got to say. Turn that off. That's a jerk. But if you get up close, it looks, I don't know, like you're talking to them. They stick around a little bit, and then they hear, So what did he say? Yeah, we'll see. Okay, ready? Is this going? It's on. It's on. Oh, geez. All right, here we go. Now, for those of you who are here for the first time for a Sunday morning service, we're talking about extraterrestrials. We'll sing Amazing Grace. We don't sing about a gospel ship. We sing about a spaceship. Well, anyhow. But, I mean, and what we talked about last week and what we have been talking about is if you pray, I would assume that you're trying to make contact with something. And what is it you're trying to make contact with? Who is it that you're trying? You're trying to make contact with an otherworldly being. You're trying to make contact with an extraterrestrial. The point is, it's such an amazing thing. It's an absolute culture shock if you change the words of anything. If I say you're going to pray to God, that's okay. It's, your children like that, all the politicians like that. Everybody says it's wonderful. But if you'll, on the other hand, say you're going to contact E.T., then it becomes, whoa, stop, get out of here. But that's actually what this is all about. If there is such a thing as this, and we know what this is because it's let man make man in our image, then there would be contacting extraterrestrial. But the point here that I'm making to you is that it's a subject for discussion, and all things should be open to discussion. And as I have also told you in the previous weeks, that I never have and never will comment on anything concerning ET or extraterrestrials or UFOs other than as they're given to you in the Bible. So here's the Bible. And the Bible has told us over the last couple of weeks about spaceships that land on the earth, of people in white suits getting out of them, walking between the wheels and looking at the scorched earth, and then taking off with fire and roar coming out of this thing. Talks about one time of a guy named Elijah who had a pre-arranged time when he would be picked up and then disappeared up into the sky as this friend of his stood there watching until this thing went out of sight. So we've seen all of these things. And so then last week we went to the ultimate and we talked to you about making contact because you've been praying all of your life, and for the most part, people don't really know if their prayers are answered or not. If you pray and things go good, you say your prayer was answered. If you pray and things don't go good, you don't mention it, And so this is basically where we're at. So nobody really knows. So if we get rid of this word pray or prayer and we start then moving to the word contact and we talk about, I know it's difficult, but if you talk about extraterrestrials, those in an intelligent civilization that lives beyond the realm of our knowledge on this earth and who have been trying to make contact with us, and we're going to make contact with them. So we eliminate the word God, we're replacing it with extraterrestrial. And you say, well, that's terrible. But it's not terrible because who made up the word God? There is no such word as God. The word God is simply a play on the word good. That's all it is. And the word devil is simply evil with a D added onto it. So it's just a question of good versus evil. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with personality. So somebody in the English language took the word good, made up the word God, and it became a holy thing, say. But in the Bible, it doesn't talk about a God. It says, let us make man in our image, like us, say. So who is the creator? Who is making this creation? So we're abandoning religion, which is, the most wonderful thing that I could ever conceive you could do for yourself and for your children is abandon religion and attempt at contact scientifically, attempt at contact with the universe, with nature, with life, Sometimes I think where our problem comes from is in the basic part of our religious training where, Christianity, Judaism began. It said that the earth was the center of the universe and that the sun and all the planets whirled around the earth. And then we found out, well, these people know what the heck they're talking about. But that's not true. The way I describe what the earth is and as far as the universe is concerned But sometimes when you go out today or tomorrow, whenever, go on your back porch or someplace, and look at a small speck of dust or a piece of sand over in the corner by the baseboard, with the two, and say, that's the Earth. And then look at your refrigerator and your house and your cars and everything, and the rest of the world is here. But this insignificant little piece of dust is the Earth. That's all you live on. You live on an insignificant little piece of dust. Nothing whirls around it. And basically what you have, or what you call extraterrestrials or God or angels, whatever you want to call it, are simply beings of an intelligence 6,000 years ahead of you who stop by these different places to see how you're doing. And I can tell you that the last report about what's going on here is not positive. These people are screwed up big time. Okay. So anyhow, we get to this point where we've created all of these parables and so forth, and let me just give you, let me just show you something. God, remember what we showed you in the book of Exodus? I was talking with this to Albert last night. Let me give you an idea where I'm coming from, and we can go from there. And remember, this is just to open discussion. It is to make you think. And once you start thinking, you'll start finding. And once you start finding, you'll start making contact. And I will give you something today that, will get you through the front door. But let's talk about that later. Here you have a situation where you have the Ark of the Covenant. All right. Now, the Ark of the Covenant was given to Moses. It had to be placed in the Holy of Holies of the tabernacle. Okay, that's where. Well, what did we find out from our studies of Exodus? We found out that the tabernacle is actually the human brain. But we not only found that out, we documented it medically. Remember, everything that you have gotten here, everything that I've told you here, we've documented scientifically. I didn't tell you anything and say, well, you should believe this, or maybe you should think of this. I have given you documentation. I've given you scientific evidence. What did we find? We found in the tabernacle that there is an outer court, there is a curtain to separate it, and there is a Holy of Holies. And that's the way it was made. But then we found in the human brain, there was an outer court called dura mater, which is hard mother. There is a curtain called arachnoid, which is the web. And there is an inner holy place called pia mater, which is tender mother. Now, this is in your brain. It doesn't make any difference whether you believe it or not. You have one. You've got a dura mater, you've got an arachnoid, and you've got a pia mater in your brain. And that's the tabernacle. Now, the interesting thing about this is that then you'll find out that the Ark of the Covenant has to be placed in the tabernacle. And remember, they said the tabernacle was a pattern of something else, and we find out what that pattern is. So the Ark of the Covenant. Now, in looking at this, I've said to Albert yesterday, there can't be an Ark of the Covenant in your brain. But I'll tell you what there can be. There can be an arc. And an arc is an electrical impulse between 2 points. So what is the arc of the covenant? And everything in your brain is electricity. Little electrical signals. And so then when you start to understand these things, you start to open up a whole idea. I mean, this becomes scientific psychology, and you get all excited because now look what you found out. Wow. What is an angel? An angel is actually an angle. And what is an archangel? What is an archangel? It is an angle of light and electrical energy that impacts the brain. Okay? So now this is where and why I come and I go around, and whenever they ask me, they don't ask me to go to speak to many places, as you can imagine, but when they do, and we go around, we start to talk about this stuff. It makes sense. Like, get nuclear fission. You're going to take a rib out of atom. You're going to take an electron out of an atom, and then you're going to say wow, I know how all life began by the splitting of the atom. What? It makes sense, doesn't it? And all of the things that we've shown you, we've documented scientifically. So then you think about this. You start through your meditation. It leads you into these types of things, and you look. What is an archangel? What is an Ark of the Covenant? And then you even find Noah's Ark, and you realize what it is: a place of rest generated by this electromagnetic fields that come down from Orion and all of these places. So you find out that these things are real, they're scientific. So now we talk about making contact. We're not talking about making prayer anymore because we don't care about that. We're not you certainly want somebody to tell you go pray about it. Forget that stuff. You want to make a contact. You want to be part of this because the world, this earth, has not been treated properly. The children have been abused. The women have been degraded. The animals have been brutalized. The very earth itself, we have dropped bombs on one another. And the biggest culprit in the midst of all of this violence and degradation is religion. And so we don't want to be part. So now I don't want to have any more faith. I don't want to have any more religion. I want to make contact. I want to be part. I want to be part of the change. I want to be part of the revolution. I want to be part of this Aquarian thing where the very essence of what we call God or good is moving upon the earth to change things. How do I become a part? How do I make contact? See, most of the time that you don't make contact is because you don't know how to use the equipment that you own. You have the equipment. You have the computer. But you don't know how to use it. See? And the reason that you don't know how to use the equipment that you own is because all of your life you've gone to churches and been associated with religions who told you, don't touch the equipment. Don't touch it. Touch it. You'll go blind. You heard that? I mean, you just don't touch it. Basically, it's the same thing. Don't touch it. Things will happen. And then they create all of these things for you to work. Demons. You're going to get demons are going to come. They make up all of this stuff to scare the hell out of you. Because the reason, if you touch this, suddenly you're going to know, I have got Windows 95 Plus right between my ears, and I can communicate with wow! It's all been put there. For me, by somebody called whatever, God, whoever you want to place this, and you hang out with a bunch of characters, say, don't touch it. And that's what you did. Now, let me give you the demonstration. Let's say, for instance, we have Al in the control room in there, and say we want to make contact with Kitaro. I don't even know if Kitaro, most of you know Kitaro. We want to make contact with Kitaro. So what we have in there, we have an amplifier, which is the brain. We have like the tape player, which is we'll call the mind. We have the tape, which is the pineal gland. And we have the cord, which is the power. Okay? So this would be the solar plexus power in you. And this would be the pineal gland in you. And you know what your mind is, and you know what your brain is. Okay? So we want to have guitar. So now you're going to say, I want to pray to God. I want to express to God. I want to talk to God. I'm going to go into my quiet place and talk to God. You can come down here and go in that control room. It's very quiet in there. Nothing. Say. So what I'd like you to do, Al, on our behalf, is I would like you to make contact with Kitaro. You have the pineal there marked Kitaro, haven't you not? You do. I'd like you to make contact with Kitaro. We all want to hear Kitaro. So I want you to provide us with Kitaro, but one thing. Now, everybody listen. You listening? I want you to be very attentive to this. What I want you to do, Al, is do not touch the tape player. Okay? Okay. All right. Let's listen, folks. I got somebody walking out. Jesus. This guy is really freaky. I'm getting out of here. I didn't hear anything. Okay. We didn't touch the tape. I'll tell you what, Al. What about using our brain? Let's, you know that with the amplifier in there, that would be that you would have to switch that over to tape 1. Okay? Now, since you didn't touch the tape, I want you to touch the tape player. You got a tape player? Touch the pineal. Put the pineal, put the tape in the tape player. We're allowing you to touch the tape player. Okay? All right, we got it all set. Okay, now, what I want you to do is do not switch this over to tape 1. Do not touch the amp. Okay? Now, you can touch the tape player, you can touch your mind, and you can touch the tape, but do not use your brain. Okay? All right, let's listen. Go ahead, playing. Okay. All right. Now, this is what I want you to do. After I get done with you, I want you to switch the brain, the amplifier, over to tape 1 like it should be. I want you to put the pineal gland in contact with the mind by putting it in the tape player. I want you to be willing, push the button so we get everything in sync. Only thing I want you to do, would you please lean over the back of that and pull the electric cord out of the side? Okay, all right. Now you got the tape player in there. You've got it switched over to number 1. You've got the tape player pushed on. Everything is in order, but okay, let's listen as we hit the play button, okay? Okay. What happened? We're using our mind. We're using our brain. We know what switches to put in place, and we've got the tape. We got everything the way it is. We don't have any source of power. We don't have any energy. We don't have the source of power. The solar energy is not lifting itself up. There's no electricity going to the tape player. Now, what I want you to do is switch the amplifier over to tape 1, put the tape, which is the pineal, in its proper place, activate the tape player, which is the mind, connect the source of the power, okay? So this way we've got all of these pieces working together, and let's see what happens. You see the difference? See? Okay. We made contact with Kitaro, didn't we? But we had to make sure, is that back on? We made contact with Kitaro, but we had to make sure that we knew what we were doing. We knew how to do it. We had to make sure that we were touching the tape player, which is the mind, that we activated the pineal, and that the power source was flowing. And once all of those things were connected, we were able to hear Kitaro. We were able to make contact. You have a computer. You have this magnificent electrical equipment located between your ears, right here. And yet you go in there, and people will go in and say, it's just like if you went in and sat where Al says, and I'm going to go in and play a tape. You didn't touch the player. You didn't know how. You didn't know what to do. And yet you think that you can just go in to and sit alone somewhere and contact. And you're saying prayers, and they're not going anywhere because you haven't listened to how do you activate this equipment. Why don't you touch the damn tape player? Why are you afraid to touch it? Why haven't you touched it all of your life? Why have you let the tape? You're trying to play. You're trying to hear. You're trying to communicate. You have electrical equipment in your head built expressly so that you can communicate with one another and that you can communicate with the intelligence above this earth. You have that equipment given to you. Why haven't you used it? And I'll show you why you haven't used it. Go to page 597. And in page 597, in the book of Isaiah, and in Isaiah chapter 29, okay? Isaiah chapter 29. It says, if you read with me in the verse 13, for as much as this people draw near with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but they have removed their heart from me, and their fear towards me is taught by the precept of men. They scared the hell out of you. And you didn't know what you had. And so you listen to them tell you what a wretched sinner you are. You listen to them tell you what a nothing you are. You listen to them tell you only they could take care of you. Only they could solve your problems. And it says they honor me with their mouth. They have never turned on the equipment. They've gone into the control room. They won't touch the amplifier. They won't touch the player. They don't have any electricity contact because they don't understand. Their fear toward me is taught by the precepts. Don't touch it. And that you heard, yes, I can hear it. I saw it at the corner of my eye. I think I saw a car tire. All these things we make up. And you saw nothing, and you heard nothing, and you experienced nothing because you never actually had the equipment working. You don't have any spiritual junk in your head. And here is electrical wiring. You have equipment in there. And you have to know how to use the equipment. Contacting God, contacting extraterrestrial, contacting an intelligence that is 6,000 years more intelligent than you, who are trying now because you've reached a point of evolution to show you things. You couldn't, people who lived 200 years ago couldn't discern about nuclear fission in Genesis, about the speed of light in Genesis, because they didn't know those things. But you have evolved to that point where you do. So now they can contact you. Now you and them can talk about these things because you've evolved to a point where you do understand them. You know about this. They didn't know the outer court, the inner court, the web, the curtain. They didn't know a couple hundred years ago. 50 years ago, medical science didn't know what the pineal gland was. But you know now. So they can talk to you now. You can talk to them. All of these things are given, but they're held there until you evolve to a point where you can understand. You can discuss it. You can know how to use it. But let me tell you what religion does. Go to page 596. You're almost there. Isaiah chapter 28. The contact with God. The contact with these other worldly beings, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them. But the word, verse 13, are you there? The word of the Lord, which is ET, was unto them precept upon precept upon precept upon precept, line upon line upon line, here a little, there a little, that they might go, fall backward, be broken, snared, and taken. That's what you got. And who said it? I didn't make that up. Exactly what happened to this world, exactly what happened to life in this world, it was given to you. Oh, we'll have a Bible study Wednesday night. Noah got swallowed by a fish. Isn't this great? The fish puked and an evangelist came out. Oh, hallelujah. Let's sing a hymn of praise to God. Jesus. And you wonder why we're all nuts. Listen, you ought to teach this to your kids. You're going to Sunday school, Gerard. You're going to hear about the 2 people with no pants on, and a snake came and told them, you don't have any pants on, Adam. Oh, my God, let me get some fig leaves. And this is what you're doing, kids. But we never dared question. We don't question these things. God took 2 of every kind of animal in a boat. 2 of every kind of animal in a boat. Nobody even just stopped to think, who's cleaning the mess? He's there for 40 days. 40 days, 40 years, and whatever the heck, he's on this boat. And these elephants and everything, and rhinoceroses, and they're all going to the bathroom, and there's no windows in this thing. Give me a break. And nobody stops to answer the question. In fact, it's so stupid, we're still looking for this ark. And today, you learn what the ark is. And it's just common sense. It's time to grow up, isn't it? It's time for us to mature. Oh. So they told you not. And what Jesus said in Matthew 6:6 is when you make contact, enter the place. Let's look at that for just a minute, page 781. Matthew chapter 6. You know, and you know what's a good part about this? You know, nobody belongs, there's no members in this church. So, I mean, you're not going to get in any trouble. You're not. Where you have to join something and do what the leader says, that's a cult. And I don't want any part of it. I want you doing all I'm doing is putting stuff in your head. Think about it. You're mature enough. You can say this guy's either whacked out nuts but if I give you the Stedman's Medical Dictionary and all of these things and stuff I'm going to give you today and stuff I'm going to show you today, then think about it. Think about it. As who's trying to communicate with you? Do you think you were put on this speck of dust in the middle or in the universe to make a torture chamber for animals and children and women and beat up and drop bombs on people? Hardly. In Matthew chapter 6 and verse 6, Jesus, in the words given to him, says, when you pray, in other words, when you make contact, enter into that place, enter into the closet. It's called, that's that place where everything you have is stored. That's your mind. And shut the door. And that means shut down everything to the outside. Communicate through the mind in secret. And what their Father sees you in secret reward you. See? And so this is then practicing, you're moving, you're going to touch that which is the single eye, the pineal gland, face to face. If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. See? And so we understand all of these things. And look what you've just come through. You've just come through Passover, didn't you? And Easter. And all of this stuff. And how many even stop to think that the reason that the lamb has to be sacrificed is because Aries must be consumed by the sun in order for there to be spring. That's the Passover. That's why the lamb gets killed. It's allegorical. It's simply a sign that why is this guy crucified? Because on December the 21st, the same sun goes through a constellation called the Southern Cross, and it must be crucified so it can rise up to the lamb. The whole thing is astrological. Astronomical. It's all talking about the universe. And all these people were trying to do was give you so that you could find it, that you could understand, that you could start to harmonize with this wonder that we live in called the universe. Instead of it, what have we done? What have we done? We outdid ourselves. We even got to the point where the very dolphins, that higher group of intelligence that we have even abused and put into cages, even the dolphins committed suicide as an expression to us to say, this is disgusting what you're doing. Disgusting. We got a letter from this guy. I don't think I should say this. Maybe I better not say this because it's a politician. Bad heck with it. What's his name? Saxton. We wrote to him because he wants to vote for going back to the old netting ways of tuna where the dolphins get killed. And he sends back this computerized letter. Oh, nothing's going to happen. Yeah, well, I was going to send him back a computerized letter. Yes, something's going to happen. You're not going to get reelected. That's what's going to happen. So then you go through that 7 months from December up to May or whatever, and even we try to make contact. See, what he was doing, he hooked up that electric cord. The solar plexus is the place of the electricity, which is in the lower part of the body. It runs up through 7 chakras, which are 7 nerve centers or resistors in your spine. It impacts in the pineal gland and throws open the right hemisphere of the brain. You know, you've heard of like Buddhists and people and that meditate going, om, om. You've heard of that. And the energy comes out. Well, let me show you something. This is electrical energy. The 7 chakras are 7 resistors. And the international measurement of electrical resistance is om. I mean, the people aren't just saying stuff. They're going to want to be freaky and spiritual. This is all true. All we have to do is understand it. See, and when I tell you about this, the electrical energy comes up to the single eye of the pineal gland through the spine and energizes the right hemisphere of the brain. Look at page 1005 in your Bible. Page 1005 in your Bible. Revelation chapter 5 and verse 1. You there? Okay. And I saw in the right hand, which is the right hemisphere of the brain, of him that sat on the throne, which is the higher mind, a book, which is the book of life, written within. Within what? Within you. And where? On your backside, your spine, sealed with 7 seals. You're not reading this in the Hindu Bhagavad Gita. It's the Bible. But how come nobody ever showed this to you all the years you've been going to church? You know what? They haven't a clue. They haven't a clue. And the way that energy comes up through your spine, hits the pineal, and opens the right hemisphere of the brain is exactly the way the sun comes up from December to April, hits Aries, moves in the northern hemisphere to the right side, and summer comes to the world. Or summer comes to the northern hemisphere. That's exactly right. That's why it happens. That's why you meditate. You meditate to duplicate the energy of the sun. That's why the Jesus is crucified, sits in the tomb, and then rises within you, sits at the right hand of the Father, means sitting at the right hemisphere of the brain. So we now see, we don't have to imagine anymore. Now we can make contact. So what do we have to understand here about making contact? We have to, first, is the power turned on? Can you give yourself, can you give the time? Can you take the time? This thing doesn't cost any money. You don't have to read any books. You don't have to study any courses. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Do you think before a goose up in Canada can fly to Acapulco, it has to go through a course in miracles? Obviously not, and I'm not knocking that. But there is nothing to read. All it has to do is goose. That's it. It goes around and it says, here I am in Alaska and it's getting cold. What am I going to do? I'm going to freeze. But suddenly, something in the goose is flipped on automatically. Beep. Whoa. Let's go, Murgatroyd. And they all fly, and a whole bunch of them are out of that place. They heard the goose say, I'm out of here. When they all took off, and they all fly. And then do they know where they're going? Do these gooses know where they're going? They don't know where they're going. Have no idea where they're going. But they fly because something inside of them is saying, I'll direct you. You just fly. You don't have to study. You don't have to have a map. You don't have to know anything. You just fly. And here they're up in the cold in Alaska, and the head goose all of a sudden hears, as only a head goose can hear, La cucaracha, la cucaracha. What is this? I don't know. Let's land and see. I'm in Acapulco. How did I get here? I don't know. This is what you're missing. Be studying and Bible studies and all of this stuff. You're missing the Acapulco of your, what would we say, brain, mind, because you won't just fly when you're told to fly. So you got to make sure the power is connected, and that is by energizing that pineal gland. And be familiar with the control room sitting inside of yourself. And they're basics, see. So you don't know how to make adjustments and computer chips and all that, but as you sit in the control room, as you sit in this meditation, if you'll just discipline yourself, and you know what about your kids? Don't you think your kids deserve the benefit of this? Do you know what you're trusting them to? You are saying, well, we're not going to have them into meditation. We won't take them to meditation. We're going to trust them to that outside school. We're going to trust them to all of these places, the government, politicians. Oh, there they are. And look at the world. You've got more drug outreach centers in this country than you got AMPs because of the destruction. It's time to trust them in the same wonder that shows a dog how to give birth, the same wonder that shows a goose how to go from Canada to Acapulco, the same wonder that brings back a robin from wherever he is to your backyard every year. That same wonder wants to take you to the place of safety too, and your children as well. But it requires you. It requires you. You just have to be still and turn on your amplifier. And then we'll raise the sound of the extraterrestrials by overwhelming the sound of your own thoughts. It says in Exodus 14, don't be afraid, be still, and you'll be lifted out of the trouble that surrounds you. It says in Isaiah 8:17, I will wait upon this Lord. I will wait upon these beings of light that we have called God. I will wait upon them until they come, and I will make contact with them. But you must know. You must understand how this works. You must realize that this is science. And you must look to these extraterrestrials or this power, or call it God, whatever you want, for signs of importance. And let's see when we talked about earlier in the program. I don't know what else I could tell you. Look, I need to give out some stuff. But I don't want you to give it out right this second. I'll tell you when, and when you give it out, I want you to give it out upside down. And I want no way to cheat. No cheating. Don't you? I know what you're going to do.